'Twas the night before Christmas, and while the Flyers' stockings were hung with care, it wasn't coal that they found in there. It was another 4 points scored by Sidney Crosby, and it almost wasn't even fair.
You're Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another edition of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Patrick Damp. You can follow me across all social medias at synonym for wet. Joined as always, as we're both on the road, by my co-host, Hunter Hodes. You can follow him on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. You can give our show's account a follow at LO_Penguins. And of course, we appreciate you, even during the holiday season, making us part of your daily routine. Don't forget that we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. Plus, if you're following us on YouTube, hit that notification button so you can be among the first to know when we drop our daily Monday through Friday episodes. And before we get started, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season big with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $250 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Hunter, let's jump right into what was an absolute whooping on Monday night at PPG Paints Arena. It didn't start that way. It was a back and forth game, so to speak. The Penguins jumped out to a 4-1 lead. The Flyers pushed back in the second period, cut it to 1, but then a big goal from Michael Bunting restores a 2-goal lead. And then the Penguins pretty much put this one to bed in the third period against the Flyers, a 7-3 victory over the longtime rivals. And a lot to get into with this one, but we might as well start where it all begins with the captain, number 87, Sidney Crosby. Another huge performance against Philadelphia, and he appears to be all the way back with another 4-point performance, and he ties Mario Lemieux for the most assists in the franchise's history at 1,033. Really, there's not a whole lot left to say about how great this man is, Hunter.
It's crazy because, like, when a player like that first comes into the league, you're thinking, like, man, be kind of cool, right? If he lives up to all the hype, breaks all of Mario's records, you're kind of dreaming about that, right? Well, Sid has more than lived up to the hype with everything he's accomplished. And now, like, the day is here where he's finally tied one of Mario's records like this, a record that I feel like a lot of fans never thought would ever be touched again. And honestly, Penn, I think we're going to be saying the same thing about Sid now. Now he's going to break this record probably as soon as this weekend against the Islanders, considering how poorly they're playing right now. They just got blown out by the Buffalo Sabres on Tuesday.
Imagine losing to the Buffalo Sabres in 2024. That's rough.
13-game losing streak that they had. And hey, I think Jesse and I may have uncursed them, considering that we talked about the Sabres gravy boat for the Monday episode of the show. But again, man, like, the days here where he finally tied one of Mario's big records like that. And, again, we're going to be talking about this for a long time because I don't think that record is going to be touched again for a long time, if not ever, considering the type of player that Crosby has been. And, we're going to be saying that as well once he gets to his all-time point record. He's only 6 away from tying Joe Sakic right now for the 9th most points of all time. Who's right after that, Pat? Mario Lemieux, 1,723 points as a member of the Pittsburgh Penguins. Sid is going to get that record by the time he retires. He's also only 88 goals away from tying Mario for the most goals ever scored in the franchise's history. We hope he can get that record as well. But it's just fantastic to see what he can do on a nightly basis. He has been kicking ass and taking names these last few weeks. 39 points now in 36 games, well over a point per game as he tries to continue to make history with that streak. And he came into this game against the Flyers with 129 points against them during his career. He now is at 133 for his career. He loves playing these guys. It doesn't matter if he's 24, if he's 30, now 37. It won't even matter if he's 40, Pat. He loves playing against these guys. He doesn't like them. That's never going to change. And he put on a show in that first period. Some of those passes that he was making, man, especially his work down low before that pass to Tomasino was tremendous. He's on another level right now.
He really is. I also want to kind of build off of what you said there about his work down low. If there was one thing I noticed during the game last night that the Penguins did extremely well, and Sullivan made a point to point it out after the game, was that they were the aggressors for most of this game. When you dive into the analytics and everything of this game, they didn't control a lot of the shot attempts, they didn't control a lot of the high danger chances. But if you go back and watch the film, they were all over the Flyers for 60 minutes. They were heavy on the forecheck. They were giving them absolutely nothing in the neutral zone. And there was not a lot of sustained pressure by the Flyers in the Penguins' end. It was one of those games where the eye test and the analytics don't match up, because you could pretty much tell on this night that for the majority of it, the Penguins were the better team. But when you look under the hood and see the possession numbers, the shot attempt numbers, it kind of tells a different story. So this is where, this is where you tell us nerds to watch the game, because the film tells a much better story. But yeah, I think overall last night, this was the kind of game that we have been wanting to see from the Penguins, especially against a team that's in and around them in the standings, like the Flyers are, a team that they're chasing now, or that is chasing them for a wild card spot at this point. So for them to go out and play that definitive of a game is a really, really encouraging sign.
Yeah, they blew them out in that first period that you saw just how bad the Flyers goaltending has been this year. I mean, Pat, all three of their goalies well before 900. Jesse even said during the show, 32nd in the league in 5-on-5 save percentage this year. Don't think last night really changed anything considering how poorly Sam Ersson played. And then Kolosov comes in after the bunting goal. I understand why Torts pulled him, just because you want to be only down one heading into the third period. You just played a really good 20 minutes. I felt like the Penguins really slacked off in that second period, just not good enough. They didn't get back to their forecheck in the second period. They were defending fine, I felt like, but they just weren't skating like they were in the first period. Tristan Jarry definitely would want that third goal back, Pat. That was a really bad goal to give up.
Yeah.
You cannot give the Flyers momentum like that in the second period. That Couturier goal cannot go in. But to give him a little bit of credit, he bounced back in the third, made a couple of really nice saves, even though I felt like that third period was very boring, but I mean that in the nicest way possible. The Penguins did a really nice job.
I think the better word that you're looking for there for the third period for the Penguins was methodical.
Yeah.
They very much shut the door and took over this game and put the Flyers in a sleeper hold. So sorry to interrupt you, but I think methodical is probably the best way to describe their play in the final 20.
No, yeah, I would agree. I only said boring, but in a nice way, just because that's what it was. They were blocking a lot of shots. They were clogging up the neutral zone. There was a lot of one and dones from the Flyers in the offensive zone. The Penguins were doing a really nice job defending that lead. I mean, again, you go to natural stat trick, for that game, the Flyers only had 0.57 expected goals in that third period. The Penguins, again, did a very solid job defending that lead, which, hey, we haven't been able to say that much this season, considering how many multi-goal blown leads they've had. But in that third period, it was really nice. And you get the empty net goal from who else? Sidney Crosby, to cap off his 4-point night. And yeah, I really like that effort. I just want to see, more of a full 60, I think. Just let's not take a full period off after you jump on a team, go up 4-1, keep blitzing them in the second period, go up 5-1, go up 6-1. I understand a team can potentially push back. I get it. I just don't want you to, fully no-show a full period, I guess. So that's if I had a small complaint, that is one. But you get the 2 points, especially in regulation. You move 2 points more ahead of the Flyers. You look at the standings right now. This conference reeks, by the way. This is a very bad conference right now. Penguins heading into the break, only 1 point behind the Ottawa Senators for the final spot for the playoffs. But behind them, they have now a 3-point cushion, on the Flyers, the Blue Jackets, the Rangers lost again. And they have an opportunity to make that cushion even bigger, especially if they are able to sweep this home and home against the Islanders and take all 4 points, not give them any loser points.
It's a huge opportunity in front of them right now, especially with the way they have played over the last month or so. It's been very encouraging from them. They've essentially resurrected themselves from the dead, because if we think about where this team was 1 month ago, yesterday, it was coming off that absolute drubbing by the Utah Hockey Club. and we were ready to just bury this team and eulogize them and say, hey, let's get a high draft pick and sell everything off that we can, because they looked dead in the water. And here we are 1 month later, and we're talking about them starting to create cushion between them and other teams to get into the Stanley Cup playoffs. But we're going to keep talking about that when we come back, because we are at the holiday break and we've only got a handful of games left in 2024. So we're going to take a look at where this team is and where it could go as we get ready for 2025. But before we do that, we've got to tell you about our first sponsor, and that is PrizePicks. Today's episode is sponsored by PrizePicks, and if you love sports, you're going to love PrizePicks, the best place to turn your sports knowledge into real money. Whether it's hockey, football, or any of your favorite sports, PrizePicks makes it easy to get in on the action. You can now win up to 1,000 times your money on PrizePicks. Plus, this holiday season, they're giving away $30+ million in rewards during Picksmas and offering 2 free picks in December. And when your picks hit, PrizePicks makes it easy to cash out. You can get your money in as fast as 15 minutes. We just got done talking about how great Sidney Crosby has been playing yet. So this week on PrizePicks, when they get back from the holiday break, I'm definitely keeping my eye on 87, because he is on an absolute tear right now. It's so simple to make my picks and have fun with friends while potentially cashing out fast. So download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 instantly. PrizePicks, run your game. All right, welcome back to the Tuesday edition of Locked On Penguins. I'm Patrick Damp. That's Hunter Hodes. So we just got done talking about what a great effort this was all around by the Penguins. Obviously, we'd have liked a little bit better of a 60 minutes, but you come through with a 7-3 victory. It's kind of difficult to complain at the end of the day, but they're now officially on holiday break. The rest of the NHL is. The Penguins will not be back in action until Saturday night, when they head to Long Island to take on the Islanders in the first half of a home-and-home. They've got the Islanders on Long Island on the 28th. Then they're back here at PPG on the 29th. And then they end the year on New Year's Eve in Detroit against the Red Wings. And these are all teams that the Penguins have points up on. And they're pretty much right now just 1 point out of the second wild card spot. They're a handful of points out of third in their division. So these next 3 games, once they return from break, are absolutely massive for them, because if they can get ideally 3 of 3, or they can get 2 of 3 and get 4 to 5 points out of those 3 games, we're going into 2025 talking about how this team can grab and hold on to a playoff spot.
Yeah, ideally you want to win all 3 of these games. I mean, the Red Wings right now, they're 13-17-4. They're not even in the race right now. Compared to last year, Pat, they were literally in the race, I mean, all the way until the final, and they were mere inches away from getting that final playoff spot in the Eastern Conference. You fast forward to this year, and it's been a struggle for them. They can't defend. Their goaltending has been a bit suspect. That's a game that you really want to win. That's the third and final meeting against the Red Wings this year. The Penguins have taken 3 out of 4 points against them already. You want to win that game. And then as for the Islanders, those are such 2 big division games, because right now the Islanders, they have a game in hand on the Penguins, but the Penguins are still 4 points clear of them. If you're able to sweep that home and home and not give them any points, you will be 8 points up on the Islanders heading into that final game of 2024 against the Red Wings. That's going to be a very big hole for the Islanders to climb out of, to try and catch you. 8 points this late in the season. We're basically already at close to the halfway point. That's going to be a tough deficit to overcome. So you really want to beat the Islanders in both of those games. The Islanders, if you combine their overtime losses with their regular losses, they are 13-22 this year. This has been a very bad Islanders team. They really don't do anything particularly well. They can't defend. They give up a lot of shots. They don't have a lot of dynamic offense. I mean, Barzell's back, but he hasn't really looked the same. The only thing I guess they have going for them is Ilya Sorokin playing at a high level this year, and sometimes he hasn't even looked like that. I mean, for the most part, he's been playing at a high level, but otherwise, the Islanders really don't have much going for them this year. Yes, they have been the Penguins' kryptonite for a long, long time, but this is still a couple of matchups that you really want to see them bank a couple of points. They're below them in the standings. These are the matchups you really need to take advantage of and bank points heading into the new year where the schedule starts to get a little bit tougher. You have the Panthers coming up in January. You also have the California road trip coming up during that month as well. So the schedule is going to toughen up a little bit again, but these are the games you really want to, again, just to bank points. But going back to last night's game, I really want to shout out a few more players. Michael Bunting gets another goal. He has been fantastic. And I mean, truly, Michael Bunting, almost at double-digit goals for this season. These last few weeks, he has been lethal, man. He gets that big, big goal at the end of the second period. I mean, that really put the game away, if we're being honest. Great pass from Evgeny Malkin to Spring Bunting for that slap shot for felt like 20, 25 feet out. Really nice job by him. You also had Philip Tomasino also gets a really nice goal. Finally, nice to see him get back on the score sheet, even though he had been quiet for a little bit. So nice job there. And then Bunting, of course, gets the power play goal. Almost forgot on my notes here for a second in the first period. Really nice passing there for the Penguins after a really nice zone entry. The power play was cooking last night. I felt like Erik Karlsson had another really good game. So just wanted to shout out a lot of more players outside of Sidney Crosby for this effort. And of course, Pat, Rickard Rakell, Brian Russ. What else can we say at this point? Those two are just trading haymakers with each other. No, I'm going to lead the team in goals. I'm going to lead the team in goals. But the fact that they're both playing at such a high level is such a luxury for the Penguins this year, especially Rakell. The bounce back that he's already had. He's already equaled the amount of goals that he had last year. It's crazy.
Yeah, the thing for me, and considering we're on holiday break, the Penguins are rolling. I don't want to be too much of a Grinch here, but there is a little light flashing in my head right now about they got to start getting a little bit more depth production because the top line's absolutely cooking, and we're not going to complain about the top line cooking.
Actually, excuse me, he's more than exceeded his goal total from last year. It's actually one now, 16 goals this year. Only had 15 last year. Just wanted to make sure I clear that up for everyone. It's crazy.
But you're right. Like that top line is cooking right now, and it is carrying them very heavily through these last couple of weeks. So you have to eventually get some more production from the rest of the lineup because they are eventually going to cool off. That's the ebbs and flow of a season. We're not going to say that all of a sudden they stink now, but when they get to that bust period of boom and bust, we can't pretend like we didn't see this coming. But to get back a little bit to what we were talking about what's coming up here, obviously these next 3 games against the Islanders and Red Wings, huge opportunity, teams that you're better than. But then once 2025 begins, this is where we're going to find out what this team is made of. They play in this order to start the year: the Panthers, the Hurricanes, the Blue Jackets, the Oilers, the Senators, who they are in a dead heat with and often struggle against, then Tampa Bay, then Seattle, and then Buffalo and Washington. So they're going from a very soft schedule to a schedule that is going to test them. We are going to find out, is this team feasting on some lesser talent and they're finding a way to get it done? Or are they suddenly back in the conversation as playoff contenders and a team that could maybe make some noise? And one thing that gives me a little bit of hope that it might be the latter, that they are a team that can make some noise, is right now they are top 10 in special teams. They have got the 7th best power play in the National Hockey League at 24.5. And then right along with it, they've got the 9th best penalty kill in the league at 82.4. So what did we talk about all last season? Man, if this power play was even league average, they might have made the playoffs. Well, look at them this year, top 10 in power play. And a lot of that has happened during this month stretch where they have really started to figure it out. They're getting production from both units. They're not making a lot of dumb mistakes and giving up opportunities the other way. Happens every once in a while, but again, that's hockey. That happens. So this team right now, Hunter, there are a lot of positive signs that they might be a playoff contender.
we got to give them a lot of credit for this turnaround. 9-3-1 after they started the season, 7-12-4. They looked dead in the water. We were coming on the show, even discussing a little bit like, hey, if this continues, they're going to really contend for a top 5 pick in the draft this year. Now, all of a sudden, we're talking about this team potentially trying to eke out that final playoff spot or one of those final 2 playoff spots in the Eastern Conference. I do think when it comes down to it, Tampa's probably going to get one of those 2 wild card spots, especially also with the way Boston is playing right now. They're playing a lot better after the coaching change. But that final spot, that final wild card spot to me is pretty wide open. And I hate saying it, but I don't trust the Ottawa Senators yet. Like, what have they done to get me to trust them these last several years? Nothing at all. So they're playing well. Don't get me wrong. Linus Ullmark has been awesome these last few weeks. They're getting production from a lot of their top players, but it's still an 82-game season for a reason. But again, you look at the rest of this conference, not very good. A lot of mid to flat out bad teams. So they have an opportunity to really stay in this race heading into the new year, heading through a lot of January. If they can navigate that part of their tough schedule like they did during the early portions of this run where they were beating some really good teams, again, they'll have a really good shot to stay in this. It's time for them to really bank some points over this next week heading into the new year. Also, I do have a stat to give you. This came courtesy of the Penguins broadcast last night, and I'm sure you probably caught it. That game, first one in franchise history with 0 penalty minutes against the Flyers, 353 games all time, including the postseason. That is a wild stat, my friend. First time in franchise history, considering how much the Flyers have pissed the Penguins off at times. That's crazy.
All I heard is that the Philadelphia Flyers are just a big-time goon squad, and the Pittsburgh Penguins have the kind of discipline that they only wish that they had over here in the eastern side of the state. But I digress. That is
I love seeing
wild.
Colts storm off after that 7th goal when Blake Lizotte scored. Just a chef's kiss. Just inject that into my veins, please.
Just absolutely incredible. But that is going to do it here for the second segment of the Locked On Penguins podcast. When we come back, it might be Tuesday, but tomorrow is Christmas and we will be taking the day off. So that means a day early with the league on holiday break. We are going to celebrate Warrior Helmet Wednesday. But before we do that, we've got to tell you about our last sponsor, and that is FanDuel. The NFL playoffs, they're almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up a W, especially with Christmas Day action coming tomorrow. There's going to be plenty for you to bet on. You can bet on things like which players will score a touchdown, how many points each team will score, and so much more. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, welcome back to the Tuesday edition of Locked On Penguins. I'm Patrick Damp. That's Hunter Hodes. And yes, I said Tuesday edition, but as you are probably all aware, Wednesday is Christmas Day. Hunter and I will be taking the day off to spend time with family and loved ones. We will not have an episode. So with that in mind, it's time to give out our MVP of the last week here in the land of the Pittsburgh Penguins. If you are new here, the Warrior helmet, it's again our weekly MVP that Hunter and I give out. Sometimes we agree on the MVP. Sometimes we give it to a different player each. And if you are unaware, it is paying homage to the 2016 Stanley Cup winning Pittsburgh Penguins. Their locker room game MVP that the players gave to one another was a Warrior helmet. So with that in mind, it is time for us to give out our weekly MVP. And Hunter, I have a feeling it's a unanimous one this week because there were only 3 games in the last week. And in 2 of those 3 games, a certain player had a 4-point performance on 2 separate occasions. And that is Captain Sidney Crosby. It has been a couple weeks since we have given him the Warrior helmet, so this is not a cop-out, but he obviously, we talked about it in the first segment, ties Mario Lemieux for most assists in franchise history, puts up a 4-point performance against both the Philadelphia Flyers, but that's ho-hum. He's done that plenty of times. And he also puts up a 4-point performance against the Nashville Predators in an overtime victory. He has been absolutely incredible. And captain is very apropos because he very much is the captain and conductor of this train.
Yeah, this is an easy pick. We still could go Brian Rust. We still could go Rickard Rakell. Heck, even Erik Karlsson as a dark horse. He's been playing really well this last week. He's been playing really well for the last month, if we're being honest right now, Pat. But it's Sidney Crosby for my pick. 8 points in the last 3 games. Obviously, the 8 points came in 2 of the games. He was shut out in that game against the Devils like every other Penguin player was. And just a little something about that. There is no shame in losing like that to the Devils because look what they just did to the Rangers on Monday, Pat. Same thing, held them to 12 shots. They've been doing this a lot lately, holding these teams to really low shot totals. They are playing very stingy in their own zone, getting production from all their top players. That's a very dangerous team heading into the playoffs. They could be a dark horse Stanley Cup pick.
Oh, yeah. And obviously, I missed Marshall Monday because I was on the road, but hilarious how we talked in the preview of the Devils game. I wanted to get a chance to say this on the show. This actually reminded me. We talked on the preview episode going into the Devils game that, oh, this isn't your dad's Devils. This isn't that team that plays the neutral zone trap and slows everything down. And while they don't, they still are an extremely stingy defensive team, as the Penguins found out. They attack you, but then they shut you down. Yes. It is essentially the Gunther sleeper hold for my WWE fans out there. It's inevitable. It's coming. And guess what? You've got no answer for it.
Oh, 100%. But just, wanted to say that a little bit. Getting back to Sidney Crosby, though. I mean, he was tremendous in Nashville. One of the biggest reasons why they won that game. And then in this game against the Flyers, he was, in my opinion, the biggest reason why they won that. Just torching on an old rival that he will hate forever. And I hope that he continues to own the Flyers even after his career finishes up. So another great effort from him. He has been firing on all cylinders these last few weeks, especially though this last week with the way he's playing. Again, well over a point per game. I know that point per game streak does mean quite a bit to him as he's continuing to chase history with that streak. Obviously, the bigger fish is trying to get this team back to the playoffs, but I very much know that he does care about that streak. But the fact that he's still doing this at age 37, again, only 6 points away right now from tying Joe Sakic for 9th on the NHL's all-time scoring list before Mario is right after. He's just playing at, again, honestly, an MVP level right now. And we are all very spoiled by what he's doing.
Oh, for sure. And to your point, he definitely cares about it. You could see it last night when he was asked about tying Lemieux. He is very much someone who downplays things like that, but you could see in his response and in his body language that he cared about this. This was something that meant something to him and something he was clearly thinking about. So really good to see. And yeah, he's playing at an MVP level, but we're in an era where there's so many damn good players that he's probably not going to get it, but he is playing as one of the most valuable players in the league right now. But that is going to do it for the Tuesday edition of Locked On Penguins. As I have hinted at quite a few times now, we will have the day off tomorrow for Christmas Day. We will not have a new episode, but we did pre-record a mailbag episode for you, which will be dropping on Thursday. Since this is the holiday break, we wanted to make sure we had something to discuss. Very fun episode. A lot of great questions from all of you in the Locked On Penguins community. Excited for you guys to hear that. Then on Friday, Hunter will have a preview for you with the back-to-back home and homecoming with the New York Islanders. But for now, for Hunter Hodes, I am Patrick Damp. Thank you as always for tuning in. Have a very Merry Christmas if you celebrate. Happy holidays. Otherwise, we will be back with a brand new episode, a mailbag episode for you on Thursday. But until then, thank you as always for tuning in, and we'll be back in just a couple of days.